Come on and give a shit.
Before we get into any logistics, the way that we start every single episode is first song that comes to your mind, and we have to squishify it. So first song that comes to your mind.
Oh well,
Squishifying is just
what's
some of the lyrics
in my
to squish.
mind? What's in my mind is this. Like I was talking about doing this outdoor wilderness stuff.
Okay.
And so the song that's going through my mind is this like simple one I learned last time I was there.
Yeah, teach us.
Which we did when we went down to go down to the water and we kind of greet the day by going to Pease Lake in Mount
Pease
Worth.
Lake is
I
great.
love your life.
We go sleep there,
Already.
or we sleep there overnight, and we get up in the morning and we go and typically we like make a little offering. We pay the land and then we sing a song. So the one that we learned recently that's in my mind that I've been singing a lot to myself lately. Okay, I guess we'll do it like call and response style.
Yep.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like it's not long. It's
just hold the mic a little closer to yourself.
So it's in like 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'll sing it and then you guys try and repeat. Cool. And then we can try to do it together. Okay. 1. I am grateful to be.
I am grateful to be.
Hearts beating, lungs breathing, joyous and free.
Hearts beating, lungs breathing, joyous and free. I didn't listen.
Even though the hard times are all around me.
Even though the hard times are all around me.
I am grateful to be.
I am grateful to be.
Should we try it again? I am grateful to be.
I am grateful to squish.
Hearts beating, lungs breathing, joyous and free.
Lungs breathing, joyous and free.
Even though the hard times are all around me.
Even though the hard times are all around me.
I am grateful to be.
I am grateful to be. Fuck yes!
That was great. That was too good to squish it, even.
I
That was
couldn't.
that was
I'm
great.
sorry. I
It
just
was great.
framed it.
It was born squishy.
We're grateful to squish.
I gotta
That's it.
cite that though. That's I don't know who originally wrote the song, but it was taught to me by a woman named Sasha.
Oh my god.
Who is cool. My name's Sasha. Her name's Sasha. It was great.
Yeah.
Sasha and Sasha.
And,
What an intro.
Yeah, it's nice. It feels good. It feels good to sing these songs. I don't know.
No, that's super magical. We've been talking a lot about a lot of people who need to come together more and just sing together.
Mm-hmm.
Are you good, Katie Patey?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
I just wanted to be able to hear more of
'Cause
the
we used
timbre in his voice.
Do that in church. And
Yeah.
now we don't have church as much frequently, commonly, but it's like a very spiritual thing to come together and all like get on the same literal vibration.
Completely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's a good way to lock in with community.
So good. And like a lot of these songs that we sing at the group, like the like contour of them and like the style of them. I didn't go to church as a kid, but I like, we all encounter hymns and stuff in life. And I think they're hymnal in their like
Well, and that's the
tone.
thing, yeah, hymnal and tone and then energy or just also like, work songs, like productivity songs, like a lot of like hymns were hymns before they were in churches, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were just,
It also cracks the kid code so quickly.
Yes.
I'm like constantly
Kids pay
singing to
attention
my
as soon
kids.
as you do something like that. It's the rhythm to it. It makes a difference
I
too.
basically spend my whole day singing when I work with kids because I'm just like, we're going to the bathroom now, and you forgot to wipe. Your bum has a little poop on it, but it's all right.
This is so true.
They must be little ones though, because like I work with
They
kids.
are.
I work with 10 to 13-year-olds,
I have a 3
and
to 5-year-old.
yeah, and so like in fact, when we go out on the land, because every 2 weeks we go out on the land. Just last time, I was able to, at our gratitude circle, like break the vulnerability and be like, okay, guys, we're gonna sing a song, and we sang a group song together. But it was like, yeah, it was middling middling enthusiasm.
They're aware. They're too aware of themselves. So
They're
the
too aware.
vulnerability is actually quite
I
tricky.
wish that's the worst thing. That part of childhood where you start to become aware of of judgment or self judgment or assumed judgment, presumed judgment, whatever. Man, that really there's a magic that gets lost, for life, and like that's why I like play.
Well,
so
they're like desperate to throw it away because they want to fit in. They're like, I'm not a fairy anymore. I never was. Don't even worry about that.
That's interesting. I think also but because they're so judgment sensitive and like turning socially outwards, like they're also really how to describe it, like they're sensitive to well-placed praise because they're starting to build this sense of self, differentiate themselves from each other. And so like if you can give them a really like genuine compliment or help them to see one of their gifts, it lands hard.
I mean, who doesn't that land hard with?
But
Like,
true.
We all, especially artists, we all have a little bit of a praise thing.
At that age too, I find it really lands when you're like peer to peer, like, yo, man, that was awesome. Instead of like, Catherine, congratulations on that great work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you really did great. That was
but
great.
It's like, bro, yes, you didn't fuck up.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they respect that a lot more.
Yeah,
but
true.
then also when you're gotta reprimand them too, because I've worked with a lot of like kids of all different ages, and if you're like, okay, bro, that was not cool. Like, no, like that's just
that goes a long way when
a
I
little
like with Tyler's
disappointed.
kids too. Like if I'm trying to like exert too much towards them as far as like getting them to like listen, not cool. But if I'm just like, that's not cool. That's like she's not gonna, like when they're fighting, I'm like, she's gonna remember that. Like you don't think it's not a big deal. She gonna remember. You're the big sister. She gonna remember everything. And then like I just have little conversations, and then I notice the difference after. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, a cool part of working with kids is like you see them take on what you say and adapt it and use
Totally.
it. Like, oh, this is
Totally.
so great.
Mentor
They're
power.
learning from us.
Absolutely.
They're a
Sometimes
sponge.
you're like, oh, they sponged the wrong thing.
Oh, everything. They sponge everything.
My-
Can we formally introduce you though?
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
want to formally introduce yourself? Because I can't pronounce your last name.
Oh yeah, sure. My name is Sasha Nicholas Ilnyckyj.
Ilnyckyj. Okay,
So it's like you're
Polish.
ill. So you stay at home and knit yourself a scarf and you wear it when you go skiing.
I love this.
Ilnyckyj.
You can remember that.
That's not even that hard. I'm sorry.
No, it looks
It
terrible.
looks hard.
Also, you can remember the spelling by saying, I love New York City kid, you jealous.
You're jealous.
I am jealous.
I love New York City kid, you jealous.
I'm jealous.
It's
funny.
ridiculous mnemonic, but I have to have both of those in my line of work.
Mnemonics are great.
But people call me Sasha or Il Sash or Sash.
Sash.
That's
Yep.
usually what
I
people
met
call
you
me.
as Il Sash.
That's
Yep,
right,
me
that's right.
too. Me
Which
too.
actually started because of hip hop karaoke in Montreal.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, my friend
As all good
Yakov.
things do.
Yeah, as all good things do.
A lot of good things happen
My
in
friend
hip-hop
Yakov, he
karaoke.
encouraged me because he introduced me to hip hop in first year university and also into jazz because he had been a jazz trumpet player, and then
Rad.
he taught me about Notorious B.I.G. and Common and Nas and Lupe Fiasco and all these guys who
All
I
the
was
good
who are
stuff.
still like core hip hop legends for
Oh,
me.
yeah, big time.
Yeah, he was Y Clusta and I was Il Sash.
I love that.
White gloves.
And I would always drink a Jaeger bomb before I went on stage and just like make up for my lack of credentials with just insane hype.
Yes.
I would just be so.
In the hip
Would you
hop,
just be, like,
you can
trotting
do so
around the
much with
stage?
hype. You
Just,
can
like,
do a lot with
circling
hype
the
in hip hop.
stage?
You can find it online if you look up Il Sash on
I
YouTube.
will.
There's my EP, but actually the more viewed stuff is me doing like Sunshine by Atmosphere and Kick Push by Lupe Fiasco.
God,
You can
Kick
see me as a like
Push.
19,
I would
20-year-old.
I will note
Anywhere I
to us
go.
later to put it a clip.
Yeah,
of
that's
that.
we're going
primo
to.
content. I'm gonna see a little blip on my.
We're going
YouTube
to.
account.
So good.
We got you.
So
That's what
good.
this is all for.
No matter what you're doing, I need you to stop right now and watch this video. We're going to absolutely put this clip in of baby Sasha rapping about sunshine because it is the epitome of this man's energy and his aura. And yeah, you're welcome, okay? Here you go.
And that's what this jam's about. It's about sunshine, baby. We all love it. We all need it. Let's do it.
So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you got sunshine in you right now.
There ain't no way to explain or say how painful the hangover was today. In front of the toilet, hands and knees. I'm trying to breathe in between the dry heaves. My baby made me some coffee. Afraid that if I drink some, it's probably coming right back out me. A couple of Advil, relax and chill. I'm at a standstill with how bad I feel. I think I need to smell fresh air, so I stepped out the back door and fell down the stairs. Sunlight hit me dead in the eye, like it's mad that I gave half the day to last night. A bad sight made me trip on my ass right into that patch
is life. All of a sudden, I realized something. The weather is amazing, even the birds are bumping. Stood up, I took a look and a breath, and there's that bike that I forgot that I possessed. I never really seen exercise as friendly, but I think something's telling me to ride that 10 speed. The brakes are broken, that's alright. The tires got air and the chain seems tight. Hopped on and felt the summertime. It reminds me of one of them Musab lines like sunshine, sunshine, it's fine. Feel it in my skin, warming up my mind. Sometimes you gotta give in to win. I love the days when it shines. Roll and it shines.
Gotta do it.
We want to show all the other people, all of the cool artists. I want to just like connect them all and be like,
Yeah,
look how cool
same. I love
and
doing that.
uniquely weird everyone
I
is
love
at the same
connecting
time.
my friends.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
stumbled upon your podcast, because I was like so stoked, because I've had this notion for ages.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, we need a Victoria
Yeah.
musicians podcast where they
Yeah.
where you get on and you just chat, or you like my vision was always to kind of mimic Song Exploder and
Yeah, that's
deconstruct
that's
a song of theirs.
I don't even know what that
That's
is.
really sweet.
Oh,
They
it's this
take a song
cool-
and they
yeah.
deconstruct it. They do like explode it and then like deconstruct how it came
Excellent.
together, what inspired
On
it, all the
YouTube?
different
Or
things.
is it podcast?
It's a podcast,
Oh.
so worth checking.
It's really cool.
If you
yeah.
haven't delved into Song Exploder, like you go through the catalog, you're gonna find folks. You'll find like the really popular ones. Like everybody who's a mainline guy, whatever, will do it. But then there's also all these niche people, and it's only 21 minutes usually, very digestible. And I typically leave with some insight. So I thought how cool would that be to do it with Victoria people.
Yeah.
I will say, because I feel bad if I don't say that Hannah Snyder did attempt to do a Victoria for a while. She was doing the Keeping It Straight with Georgia thing where she was talking to Victoria musicians. I did one episode with her, but she didn't continue it. But
Yeah.
it was a similar but different vibes. And but I mean, that's the thing. We're all so creative. Like like Danny and Sarah have been talking about, like, I feel like it's only a matter of time. There's going to be all these cool podcasts from our community because it's such a good medium. It's such a good storytelling medium.
So I went to a Strong Towns meeting this week, which is like urbanism and like, locally sustainable infrastructure group. And they are all coming together from a podcast called Strong Towns, and they were like, we need to make our own podcast. And I was like, you do. And I want to like bring them maybe on this podcast too, because they're all about just like, and I'm trying to specifically represent the artists in that group and be like, we need venue spaces, we need rehearsal spaces. But it felt really good to like have the asset already of like a foundation of something. But this was an idea an old friend of mine and I created before I was even part of this community, just because her and I were really big on just conflict resolution and communication. That's a kind of a wormhole I have never exited. I'm just permanently being sucked deeper into it, and just like the ways that we can refine our communication skills. And I think getting to live on an island with only so few, but also like a very rich mix of musicians, but like there's just a little bit more accountability to like sustain the relationships here, makes me just want to like share the skills that I've learned from a lot of getting it wrong as a very outgoing individual who's put my hand in many pots. You don't always get it right, and I just think it's like really important to like go through it and then share what we learn about going through it, because so many people avoid this shit, or so many people avoid getting deep and squishy and stuff because it's the easy thing to do, and it makes a lot of sense. The world is asking so much of that energy from us already, but I want to like make it seem more accessible, make it seem easier. And a lot of the musicians that I surround myself with and artists have already figured a lot of that stuff out, because art just asks that of us too, and we're practicing it in our day to day
all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something I wanted to do as well, because I just met so many interesting people, and I just wanted to kind of like hear their stories. Like it's all different vibes, but somehow on similar energies.
Yes.
And just a fun way to bring people I know together and like talk to them and capture stories and just have a little time capsule of our existence here. And then I saw Tasha's story talking about how she wanted to do like she was like, should I do a series about conflict resolution like on Instagram? And I was just like, girl, it sounds like you're talking about a podcast. And she was like, actually, I had this idea, and I was like, it's funny, I've wanted to do a podcast, but I didn't have anyone to do one
Katie's
with.
like, I can
and so
talk.
we both were just like, oh yeah, let's do this. It's like both like
that makes sense.
Both of us had this outside of this, and then like in different ways. And then I like Tasha was just like, I'm making these things for Instagram, and I'm like, well, why not just make a podcast?
Katie's
you got so much to say.
Perfect.
The ADHD fire under my like overly structured
Brain
brain.
helps you add
But-
more structure.
Yeah,
to
of
life. It's
course.
great.
The yin yang.
But speaking of sharing stories,
Ah.
I would
Yeah.
love to hear how you ended up in Vic.
Mm.
And since you've been here, like, you also have your hands in many, many pots. So, like,
Mhm.
kind of maybe a little bit of a rundown of what your portfolio would look like if you were to look at it right now.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Thank you.
That's what you
I
hear.
came to Vic. I came to Vic. Like, the main reason was, I guess it would have been 2016. Yeah,
Yeah.
roughly 2016. I was really in love with a woman named Jackie, who I still adore. Shout out Jackie.
We love you, Jackie.
And Jackie had early in our relationship, before we ever met, she intended to move to New Zealand. And so we met, hit it off. She moved to New Zealand, and I was left in North Vancouver and was like, I feel like I need to change too. So I moved to Victoria and moved into the Dangle Dome, if you guys are familiar with that
I
place.
remember. That's
But
where I
back when
met
it was
you.
the
Where I met you.
Southgate,
Yeah.
the one on near Cook Street Village, so that was the second generation Dangle Dome. And moved in there. Got embedded in that community, which is a wonderful like art spaces and music space and just like intentional community of joy. And I met those people, and they welcomed me so warmly, and they also welcomed that I kind of had to go to New Zealand. I kind of came to that decision. So I basically lived there in this tiny thing called the Womb, which was a little mini room
I love all
built
the names.
inside another room. It was like corrugated plastic and had like a carpet door,
Excellent.
no natural light. And I
like
lived with my
sounds like
friend
my bedroom.
Elena, who was my womb mate, and
My
I spent
womb-
it- I
my
spent it-
womb mate!
my womb mate Elena. Shout out to Elena.
Like
I spent
twins.
I spent about 4 months in that space, and then while I was working a ton of jobs, like I worked at Sylvan Learning Center, I did whale watching, I worked at the Bug Zoo, and I served at a Greek restaurant, and I just
They're
like
all awesome jobs.
I pulled
Yeah.
up the money. I went and joined Jackie. Her and I spent like about a year traveling through New Zealand, India, and Nepal. And then sort of I convinced her to come back here with me, and we moved back into the Dome as a pair.
Wow.
So that's how I came to Vic, which was, and I like honestly love it here. It's become my chosen home. I've at times made little forays away because I feel like it's good to leave your comfort zone and get the
Yeah.
challenge. But like,
Where were
it's,
you born?
I was born in North Vancouver.
In North Vancouver. Okay, cool.
Shout out to Capilano River.
Capilano.
Yeah, if you ever go there, it's a beautiful river.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's that. And as far as like my portfolio, I mean, like typically, I guess, I don't know. I think my main like squeeze is that I'm a teacher, but then most other people know me as a musician. And I think you guys like maybe asked me when I was coming around to like talk about how I got into music.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting because like I didn't really like I'd always really loved music. Like I was first introduced to it probably by my elder brothers, who have very different tastes. Like one is kind of into like almost like Canadian alternative stuff, like Our Lady Peace and
Yeah.
like
Sounds like my brother too.
yeah, like and then like Incubus and Nine Inch Nails and things like that.
Nice.
He introduced me to that, Radiohead, and then my middle brother is really into indie rock, like The Strokes and like The Hives and Franz Ferdinand and bands like that. And being
Modest
8
Mouse.
years, being 8 years younger than the oldest and 4 years than the middle, I got kind of exposed to this really great music early on.
Great.
My swimming teacher was also really big. He was the first to burn me CDs, which
Were you
was so
a swimmer?
sick. Yeah, no, I was actually really scared of water. He was like more just like a really nice guy, and my parents hired him to teach me to swim. And it also involved like sitting on beanbags, eating pizza pops, him teaching me about like Tom Petty and the Chili Peppers and all these bands that became
I love
big.
this.
And so I just like loved music. Like I loved listening to it and collecting it, and didn't really formally train in it. Like I had like this bad misadventure with learning violin when I was in grade 4, and I was terrible,
Yeah.
petulant child.
But the system is also.
Yeah, it wasn't for me, but I like
No.
getting this big appreciation. And then, so I didn't really study it in high school. In high school, I did a lot of improv and theater.
Yeah.
Which was my connection to like the artistic. And then when I went to university, Yakov, Y Cluster, him and I were living together in second year, and I would always be walking around singing. Like this is a typical thing. If you know me, I'm always like singing a song while I do stuff. I can't help it. It just sort of
Going to the
comes out.
fridge. Mhm.
Yep, and it'll typically be like a song that's in my head.
song,
I'm not like
yeah.
singing what I'm doing, and I'll just be singing what's on loop.
Yeah, there's a
And-
radio in my head. Yeah.
And at a certain point, he was just like, I think out of love and also out of some irritation, he's just like, Sasha, you're always singing. Like, go join a singing group or something.
For the love of God, take this seriously.
Take somewhere, like put
You need
it
an outlet for this other than my eardrum.
Go bother someone else.
precisely. And he was into straight ahead jazz, like Miles Davis, John Coltrane. He didn't want to hear me singing, whatever, Ariana Grande or whatever I was into that day.
Yeah.
So I was walking around singing in my place, And he made the suggestion, so I looked it up. I was studying at McGill University at the time, which has an unbelievable amount of a cappella groups. So there's about a dozen, and I chose one called E-Fusion. And so I went to the audition and I sang I'm Gonna Find Another You by John Mayer, if you guys know that song.
Oh, I'm gonna find
Another You. He's great.
Yeah.
Shameless lover of John Mayer.
Saw him live once. Fucking insane.
He's insane. He's beautiful. And his
So
career is
hot
wonderful.
And funny too.
Funny,
What the
hot.
fuck?
He's like got so many modes of writing. Anyways, I sang that, and I also beatboxed because I was just like, why not throw the whole
Hell
thing in
yeah.
there? So I beatboxed for them, and I think on just like Moxie, they gave me a call back because like I was like, whatever.
your
Like
Moxie gets
I had
you
Moxie,
far.
had to Moxie, get to the callback, and it was mortifying experience
Excellent.
because it was like everybody there had done like high school choir, glee club, whatever, had been in a
Anything, yeah.
cappella groups.
Yeah.
They're like like McGill was full of people who were just such keeners, and I was like such a greenhorn neophyte guy. Go there, they like we do a little warm up, and then they split us into quartets, and they give us a sheet music of an a
Yikes.
cappella song by a Finnish group called Rioton called
Yikes.
Butterfly, which is such a beautiful song. But anyways, so I was the bass in this quartet. We like were supposed to learn the song. We had like one of the members of the group there to sort of teach us to play the piano and teach us our parts. And I'm like looking at this. It looks like complete
Yeah.
gobbledygook to me. I'm not a musician.
No.
Have never really studied beyond this grade 4 little foray.
They're expecting you to sight read.
They're expecting us to sight
Oh my
read.
God, that'd
Sight
be
read,
my
and as
nightmare.
the bass,
And
I'm
an
like,
acapella?
I'm the core of the tuning and everything,
Be
right?
surprised.
And it's
Yeah.
like this section is
Hell no.
this section is hectic. It's hectic. I encourage people to listen to this song because you'll get a fucking
Validate it.
appreciation
We'll
for
put
the
it
song.
under the story.
It's the part specifically
Yeah.
where it's like tomorrow I'll die, tomorrow I'll die. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's all about
yeah.
metamorphosis.
The
So
irony, because
we-
you're in that moment being like,
I was gonna
today I am dying.
This is my ego death right
Totally. I was having mad ego death. And then we get called back to the big group and they're like, okay, so you guys are going to perform in your quartets. And we start and I'm like so off. I just like stop. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but it is not fair to the other 3 people in this group. I don't know a thing about what we're doing. I need to stop.
now. I love the
And I
honesty.
felt
That's
so
honest,
bad.
though.
I just felt like a total idiot. And the guy who was the bass section leader like takes me aside. He's like, yeah, like, sorry. It's clear that you don't know how to read music, which is really a prerequisite. I don't know how you got this far.
And then you're like, but have you seen
Have
my
you seen my
jazz
Moxie?
hands?
Have you seen my Moxie?
See my Moxie, sir.
I got a huge
On
Moxie.
a hip hop hype man
It's
skills.
not
is
here
what got
right
me
now,
here.
but I promise
I promise
you.
it's huge. Yeah.
Give it like 10 minutes.
But anyway, so he takes me aside. He's like, you can't be in the group if you can't read
God
music.
bless ya.
So you should learn some music theory, learn to
Mhm.
sight read, sight sing, and then come back in the future. I go home, come through the frickin' door. Yakov's sitting there. I'm like, Yakov, I got blasted. That was horrible. They frickin' ripped me apart. He's like, what happened? I was like, they made me read music. I don't know how to do that. And he's like, oh, that's the problem? You don't know how to read music? And I'm like, no. He's like, then learn the piano. That's the way you read music. And I'm like, oh, I'd already had a little bit of like, had learned like bling
Dibble-dabble.
blong blongs on the piano before,
Yeah.
but like had never really
Little
been
bling blong will get you far.
never really had a conscientious go at it. And then something about the embarrassment of that event and my love for Yakov and just the simplicity of what he told me to do, just like it all crystallized. I bought this little, 45 key Casio thing on, I think it's Kijiji in Montreal, the used thing. I started learning songs off YouTube, and then I found a teacher named Helen, who was just such a beauty, and she was a student at the school who was doing a master's program, and
Nice.
she just like took me under her wing, and like it became a total obsession for me.
Nice.
So while I was doing my undergrad in non-music, I just would practice all the time. I like completely reorganized my life as things were getting like more and more rewarding, and I was like getting my chords and getting my arpeggios and starting to be able to read and like working my way through repertoire and all this stuff. It just became this super fulfilling thing.
Yeah, with
And yeah,
a bit of a bumpy start though. But
Totally.
it seems
How
like
old are
that
you
kind
when
of
this
fueled
was?
I
you.
would have been in second year, so like 19, 20.
Yeah.
that's a lot of
awesome.
time. There's a lot of attitude out there that like you have to have been doing it forever to be able to like.
Mhm.
But that just goes to show that like you can go
bullshit.
from you know, not knowing how to read music and trying to be in an a cappella group to like teaching all these
But I
different
think that's
cool music
rare
things.
what you did though by sticking to it though. A lot of people will just be like, "Fuck that shit, I'm out."
Yeah,
You know, because it's so vulnerable. Singing specifically, being a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
Spooky, spooky.
I love the support of like the hip hop. A lot of this, I was just telling Tasha that a lot of people don't see this supportive side of the hip hop community because a lot of people see like a lot of the misogynistic like rap battle side of things.
Of course.
But there's such a weird underbelly of support that you don't see, and it's kind of like the way that a lot of like certain tough on the outside people are guarded in that way. They're like, you have to work to see that side. You know, you have to be here, be part of it to see that side more.
Hip-hop's a very collective art form
Yeah.
compared to classical music specifically. Like you have your homies and the boys in the back, and you gotta stick together, and you got your little pack, and like you're all like, it's a hype thing. It's a
you got
party
your
thing,
Ilnyckyj hype man in the corners. You gotta have that.
Flip it. Skirt. Okay, it's so funny you say this because like that's where Victoria has offered me the most is because prior to coming to Victoria, all I did was play classical music.
Okay.
I did like Helen was classical, so classical.
Yeah.
She was a beast, and I was like, that's the path. So I was learning Bach and Beethoven and Chopin and whatever.
Yeah.
And then and that's very solitary. Like I would sneak into the McGill practice rooms. I made a little fake ID. I was on that level.
I love this.
I
renegade.
printed off a new version of my ID where I changed my degree to be Bachelor of Music because you had to put your card in the window.
I love
Hell
this.
yeah.
And I would like, if they had an RFID card to get in, I would wait around the corner, like tucked like a little mole. And then I would hear the beep of somebody going in. And then I would zip around the corner to sneak in.
This is amazing.
And I would carry like
renegade
food in my
music
backpack that was non-perishable so that I could be in the practice rooms late and not leave past the barrier door.
Oh my God.
It was crazy. So anyways, I did that for 4 years during my degree and then moved to Vancouver and lived in my parents' house for 2 years while I did a classical diploma at Capilano, which was a different experience. I was finally playing with other musicians and finally doing like accompanying, but still it was pure classical. And then when I moved to Victoria, I started jamming and was like, oh my God, like this is such a satisfying thing to do.
This is what I was born for.
Improvising is so fun and like
Improvising is my favorite thing.
it's so cool. And like I love locking in with rhythms and making little 5% offers and like holding something steady while stuff transforms around you. It's so cool. And like I still do sometimes drift back towards pulling out sheet music and learning a classical piece, which is in its own way very satisfying. But in terms of like, you know, I don't know, like reward and like potential, I feel like the improv space is so much more fun.
Nurturing of self-expression is
Totally.
I've noticed too that like in an improv space with you, the couple times that we've jammed together, that 5% offering and like watching the room come together and like knowing how to guide that's a very like teacher brain thing to do.
Oh
and
yeah,
I
and
feel
then
like
knowing when to step back too and not be shining and stuff and like leaving room for others to do things. And I've definitely found myself as a vocalist in the jams with you following what you're doing on keys more than anything else because I'm like, I know I can lock in where Sasha's holding it down.
It's a very welcoming like balance because it seems like it's always been destined, and it's interesting hearing your story. It sounds like you've been destined to be this collective musician, but you did come at it at a bit of a like independent approch too, which is curious. But I guess you were in teachers college.
No. I was doing an undergrad in history and psychology.
Okay.
And then I teachers become like teacher was a later thing. I actually decided to become a teacher really around age 30.
Okay.
Because I kind of always knew I wanted to teach, but and like I've always had I'm 34.
Okay.
Yeah, I've had like a teacher mentality for a long time though. Yeah. I had a lot of amazing mentors throughout the life.
You have that like old soul mentor vibe going on. That's
People tell me
you're older than 34.
I met this it's the Boxy, the Boxy, abundant Boxy. Somebody once told me at a party that I had teacher face.
At a party.
It was actually at the bakery. It was actually at the bakery.
Not surprised.
It was my friend. So my friend Mark, his wife, who was from Japan, who had just recently like immigrated to Canada, and like so she was just working out her English and etc. And I was like, yeah, I'm Sasha. She's like, oh, you know Mark from teaching. I'm like, yeah. She's like, you have teacher face.
I love that so
much. You have
much.
teacher face, and now I think about that.
That's
we're gonna give it to the camera. Do I have teacher face?
We're gonna have to do a vote. This is gonna be.
Have to do a poll.
We're gonna do a poll.
Do I have teacher 100%. Face?
You don't look like my teacher. You're too smiley for any of the teachers I ever had.
It's a different time.
You're like what we want our teachers to.
You say that. You say that.
Yeah.
I got my frowns. I got my expectations.
You got your stern teacher.
I got
You didn't practice.
yeah. Not honestly with the music kids. Like I know nothing's make or break.
Yeah.
Like, and actually, as my career in the classroom has gone on, because I'm also a classroom teacher. As my career doing that has gone on, I've realized less and less is make or break. When you first start, you think everything is so important, and that they're never going to pick up that skill if you don't give it to them in that instant, which is really, really wrong. But yeah, with the music students, because I know in particular it's just meant to be like cheesecake of life.
Yeah,
I will never ever make a student feel bad for not practicing.
No,
that can really kill the joy.
people.
Music, people who are interested in the arts are naturally like prone to criticize themselves as it is. So it doesn't take a lot from the outside. As much as it's important to take constructive criticism, support needs to be part of that. Like people like to like say constructive criticism as an excuse to just be blanketly like opinionated about everyone's craft, but really it's like constructive criticism is meant to come from a place where there is also support that is also like you know, like here's the constructive part, which is the support I'm offering you to reach the place you're trying to get right now that you're missing or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Can I ask you a question?
Oh yeah.
Oh sorry.
Yeah, I have one.
Sorry. I've
been waiting to ask you this question about going to. You went to do a specific teaching thing in Dawson, right?
No, not in Dawson. In Betchico, Northwest Territories. Shout out to Betchico, Ray Edzo. To my people.
I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that and that experience, because it was such a cool. I loved watching the adventure, like what you shared and like seeing a little bit afterwards.
Oh man, it was an amazing experience. So challenging and also just very enriching. And I think it's like a universe. It's honestly like I've lived in Montreal and I've spent a lot of time in New Zealand. I had a period of time in Australia and Vancouver, and I've been in lots of different places, but there was nowhere that was as different as living up there.
Yeah.
It's basically 100 kilometers outside of Ilnyckyj.
Yeah.
Tiny community, roughly like 2,000 in the whole zone.
To really feel immersed in what you're doing in that state, because
definitely
there's not as many distractions.
Definitely. And like, gosh, I mean, I've now had many conversations about this, and I guess I might, if I can bounce the question back to you, is there a component of my experience you're curious about? Because it's so much. We could have a long conversation simply about that.
A Cliff's Notes for people who might not know about like what it was that you did when you were there.
Okay.
Like, and then also like what my main thing. Yeah. What's the biggest takeaway from that experience that you would that for you, or that you would recommend to others to take on some kind of challenge?
Yeah,
like
that's a cool question. Okay, so the Cliff Notes is I moved up there on the invitation of my middle brother Micah, who's also a teacher. He had moved up there and invited me to come and co-teach with him.
Cool.
So we both taught a grade 9 class. Well, we taught 2 grade 9 classes: the Saws, which were the beavers, and the Digas, who were the wolves. We like gave them a different name than just 9A and 9B. We're very different, him and I.
Does he also have teacher face?
He does have teacher face.
That's cool.
Yeah, he has teacher face.
Runs in the family.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. My mom's a teacher. And I've got 50% of her genes. So,
I love it.
But yeah, so Mike invited me up. He did the humanities and I did the sciences and math.
Nice.
And yeah, like he stayed with me for the first year, and then I did a second year by myself individually. You know, the community is super different than Victoria. It's 99.9% indigenous. It's Dene, the Klitscho people specifically. There was a couple people who were from different countries. There was a guy from Morocco, and there was one family from the Philippines. But the vast majority were indigenous, and they were so welcoming and, you know, gracious and kind and funny. And working at the school was completely different than everything I had done to that point.
Yeah.
And challenged tons of my assumptions about learning. Like I talked before about, you know, early in my career being more rigorous and concerned about things. And this place really taught me about the importance of the socio-emotional component of the classroom, like community and safety and humility and all the things, the bonding. So like to achieve that, music was actually a really big aid. Like I ran karaoke events in my class. I had a little music club. I taught music to the kids. And that was really neat. Nice. And it sustained me up there. There wasn't any hip hop or classical. There was just country.
Oh, wow.
So I played in like a native country band.
Dope.
That did country and rockabilly, but in Klitscho. So you
had to learn the language.
Yeah, I knew the choruses.
That's cool.
I would just go like Taga wo hideho.
That's amazing.
That's iconic.
I love that.
And they would sing their stuff.
I love learning another language.
Oh my god! And these guys were all very old, like David, who was like the leader of the band, was in his early 70s. Our drummer, Captain Eddie, was in his mid 80s. Captain Eddie, and they would all
Such a good drummer
they
name.
would all have chewing tobacco, and we would sit in this cold ass garage,
Hell yeah.
and we would play. And,
that
and
sounds
Captain
like
Eddie
a
had
country
an
band.
electronic drum kit.
Yeah.
He played on electric. So we all practiced on headphones. It was such jangly shit. I would bring my keyboard and mostly play organ, and we sang like we did some like rock and roll songs, like we did like
love that.
CCR and like weird 80s ones I'd never heard of, and
Excellent.
you know, like John Fogerty and things like that, and whatever. And then but we'd also sing these country songs, and so and we would like play for the dances and
Cool.
and do things like that. I don't love country music, although I did come to appreciate it more and more.
Well, when you see how it unifies people,
Totally.
like whatever
Yeah.
the music is, that's the goal, and
Yeah.
it's just beautiful.
Doing the two-stepping with people
Oh,
is so
honky
Yeah,
fun.
tonk
there's a lot of
fucks.
cool. Yeah,
Honky
I
tonk
grew up
fucks.
around that stuff, so I have an appreciation for it. You know,
Yeah.
like, but there's a lot of good and bad in the in any
Yeah.
music, in any musical genre. There's
Yeah,
that
so-
good and bad.
Totally.
Yeah, and then coming back to Vic must have been quite different again, eh?
Yeah. Oh, I had
Yeah.
insane reverse culture shock when I came
Yeah.
back. That's its own tale. But I want to address the last thing you said. Like, I think the thing that I took away most from the folks up there, which was a really good lesson. I think because it was very much a mixed experience. I will not say that it was all positive. There was enormous challenges and profound loneliness. And if you listen to the music that I made at that time, like Fireweed, the EP was written and recorded up there.
Okay.
So the forlornness that underlies everything and the like
Mhm.
loneliness and isolation that kind of pervades that project is very clear evidence that I wasn't like actually okay.
Yeah.
However, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a good experience. But the thing that I will take away, that I took away that was most positive, and maybe this is a characteristic of small towns in general,
Yeah.
but the most neat thing about that place was that everybody was very accepting of the imperfections of one another and like very radically tolerant of each other. You know, you hear that small towns are intolerant and they don't like difference. And the fact of the matter was actually that like
The opposite.
everybody had like fucked up
Everybody's
shit in
got
their
their
life.
shit, and you're just like, I like you, I might not like that shit, but we're still neighbors in a very small
Totally,
town.
exactly. These mentors who I like came to confide in and trust. They would talk to me about like their 20s and 30s when they were like alcoholics and they were abused and abusers and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And people just seemed to like get past it. And the nicest thing is that people just sort of like accepted you for exactly who you were.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to be ambitious.
Well, I think it's also they can relate to one another, right? Because when you're in a very dense part of the world, and there's lots of different people that you actually can't really relate to, it might be a little harder to hold the empathy that they maybe can. Yeah, but then it's like a whole other element of it being a part of the world that is particularly like, taken advantage of and really underserviced. So yeah.
So with all that and like being said, and that being the takeaway, what would you like say to someone else who's like gonna take on some kind of crazy challenge
Considering
like that
going
and
up there.
worried up there or something like
somewhere
you were
else.
saying, like, you leave
Anywhere.
to challenge yourself to experience the thing, like, and you've there's the good and there's the loneliness and there's the extreme challenge part, based on your experience. So what kind of advice would you give to someone who's gonna endeavor into something like that?
Gosh, well, I think that I was introduced to a mantra when I was quite young, about 12 or 13, from somebody I did theater with. Shout out to Sheena DuPont. Sheena told me once in a very high pressure, like, it was a high pressure improv situation, which is weird to think about, but I did like improv in high school and it was very big for us.
It's my
And we
favorite thing
would
in the world.
cry and we would like get so worked up about our performances and stuff like that. And she told me when I was like freaking out before a show, she's like, Sasha, there's no pressure, no diamonds, is what she said to me. And I feel like if your instinct or intuition is to go and put yourself into this challenge, like, you're going to be dealing with, you're going to get exposed to poverty, or you're going to get exposed to whatever you might be going into, and you recognize that there's going to be pressure on you, like, recognize as well that there's going to be, in the long run, there'll be some teaching that you get from that.
Beautiful.
It's going to harden. It's going to harden a piece of you in a way that's going to make you more resilient and more able to like deal.
Well, can I add to
bring out
that?
that shine.
Bring out the shine, the bling.
That's awesome. And I also think that, like, we value diamonds by, like, taking very good care of them as well. And I've definitely, as I've gotten older, have that mentality of I want to, like, do the hard stuff. But that means as much as I ask for myself, I need to give that back to myself as well. I need to give that love, that tenderness, and that self-care back to myself. So I kind of like the diamond analogy of thinking, yes, now I have this beautiful thing, and I put it in a very soft and squishy box, and I close it, and I let it rest every now and again.
Give it the care, because it
Give
went
it the
through
care.
the pressure. Yeah.
You know, I've been saying this thing for 21 years,
Yeah.
and like I haven't made that connection. And like what you just said is actually, I'm feeling like expanding the metaphor even further. And like, if we think about diamonds, like they're created through this like very like intense process underneath the earth, and like in the process of transformation they must be kind of like unseemly and kind of like primordial and like messed up and like not crispy and clean and shiny and beautiful. And so that like that's a component of it as well, that like there's going to be this
with the times when you're not shiny and beautiful in order to get to that end point.
Exactly. Something like that.
Most of it, I feel like 99% of it is that.
I think you do. You have. I feel like you have a good understanding like that. Just like reading like your recent stuff and like how you plan to care for yourself. Like, you know what I mean? That's a good like. It's a lot of people don't have that like at your age, especially sense of like, oh, I need to. Like, we're all so programmed to just push through everything, you know, push through the goals, the adversities, the accomplishments, whatever. Like, push through, keep going, keep chugging along, stay busy, da-da-da-da. But we don't, our culture doesn't often, like, put that care and emphasis on the balance of, like, the self-care and, like, knowing what you need and speaking what you need and all of that beyond, like, the weirdly, like, you know, self-care industry. Like, beyond the points of where they can sell it to you in a consumer fashion, like, go get a massage or go to a spa.
That as part of supporting the diamond, right? It's like actually it's like not taking away from it. It's adding to this like sustainability of the whatever you're putting your energy into.
Yeah. And the I'm really grateful that when I chose to go to the North, I stayed the second year. Okay. Because if I had left after the first year, which was really challenging, more so than the second year, I think I would have had I think when I moved up there, I became more attuned to like how important stories are. Yeah. And I was like, if I leave after this first year, I'm scared of the stories I'm going to tell about this place, which is a very beautiful, profound, like place, no place I've ever been before. If I leave now, what am I going to tell people? I'm going to tell them about how hard the school was, how kids didn't show up, how I was like lonely as hell, how the environment was really crazy, like all these things. This like I would have left in the middle of the transformation, and then I would have presented them this like goop, black coal carbon goop, and they would have been like, man, I'm sorry that you had that experience. But staying the second year and allowing things to settle in and basically, I think opening myself up to the community itself as opposed to seeing myself as an outsider, they provided this like mold for me to like see the diamond within.
And I love that you can use the like how you would express the story to others is actually your own experience.
100%.
So you're like,
that's it.
I need to do justice
doing
by
it for
my
the plot.
own experience, but for the plot too.
For the plot. But 2 years was enough plot for
like,
me. I'll
this
say.
Isn't good enough. You're like, I don't like this plot story. We gotta keep going.
But yes, if you're gonna do something like that, be prepared that maybe the longer you stay, the better it might be as well.
Hello, it's Tasha here from a week-ish after we recorded this episode. And I just wanted to show you guys a little bit of Sasha's EP. We talk about it a little bit in this episode, and it is just a luxurious sound bath of textures. And he says that he's a little depressed when he made this album, but honestly, this song in particular that I'm going to show you really gets the blood going. You kind of want to like bop around. You can't really help but move your head. So this is Infrared, and it's from his album Fireweed. So check it out.
Stay the course, wind up there, you'll get too much infrared. Clever machine, put a man on Mars, pave our way among the stars. Because we can, should we go? Trust the fire, spare our hope. It's misery, slow burn a century. It seems so strange. Clocks are going faster in a single day. Create, destroy. It's a destiny card in the DNA of every little boy.
I wish I had, like, honestly, I was like, so, I wish I could say that it was like, oh, everything was so instinctual and intuitive and yada, yada, yada. The, like, months preceding my departure from the North were just like, I was so not with it. I was so not together.
Wow.
Well, that's the thing that happens. Like, we're not, like, our intuition, you know, listening to it more and whatever doesn't mean it's always you're always gonna be so certain, right? It's that moment of, like, which is the right decision, and, like, being able to quiet the fears in the mind and whatever, and listen to, like, the intuition, you know, like, know yourself well enough and sit with yourself and the feelings well enough to know that, like, okay, which feeling is this? Is this anxiety? Is this fear? Is this dread? Or which one's the intuition? You know? And
I find, like, putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions force you to figure that skill set out, because you're having to, like, rely on yourself. And you have to, like the lonely moments, like, where you're just, you know, you're out there, you're not supported by, like, a cozy, cushy family or someone holding your hand through it. You have to, like, trust yourself because no one else is helping you through it. And then that builds, like, that reliance and the trust on your own. And
it teaches you how to build a new community around you when you need it. Like, that you that you have the ability. You don't necessarily need only those people that nurtured you in the place you were comfortable with. Like, you learn to branch out and make new community and meet new, like, make friends and build bonds, and then have that to lean on. Yeah, and there were people up there who were my salvation for sure as well. That's like good. It was lonely, but it was I also I encountered, like, very great depths of kindness there from people who could recognize I was in distress and help me. So. And I think an experience like that gives you such a good ability to reflect on your own feelings and understand how you feel, because you sat in that loneliness, as uncomfortable as it was, like, getting to know and listening to, like, those feelings, and then that you come home with more of a certainty of, like, this is what I need and want for myself, for that part of my soul that, like, aches when it's lonely, you know, like. Yeah. And an EP. Yeah. And people here are also really, like, well versed in that kind of stuff. Like, they're, like, there's been, I don't know if I was just kind of not so aware of it when I first moved to Vic, roughly 9 years ago. But it seems like in the last few years there's been a big, like, I don't know, emotional step forward. Awareness. Yeah, step forward. Maybe it's just how the community has changed, but it just seems like people are so much more comfortable talking about, you know, expressing their needs and, like, these, like, concepts of, like, holding space and feeling things in your body, and, like, things that like the more, you know, whatever part of me would like roll my eyes at a couple years ago. Yeah, totally. I think it's a lot of factors that come into play, like the experiences we lived through where everyone was, like, forced to be in lockdown and only reaching out via, like, whatever communication modes they had. And also, like, I give a lot of credit to the people who, like, do disability advocacy, because, like, the pushing for, like, disability rights is what brings those kind of terms to the forefront, like access needs and things like that, and knowing knowing what is overstimulating versus, like, I'm just a person who can't handle a situation. I'm just a person who has this issue and I don't know what's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it's because it didn't have the tools or the language for it. So so I give a lot of credit to disability advocates who, like, make people aware of these things and that they exist, and that like there is language to describe what you're feeling. It's not just like, I am broken and know how fix, you know, like that's how I felt for a lot of time. Like, I was like, I just feel fucking broken and I don't know how to fix it. Yes. And without, like, copious amounts of expensive therapy I couldn't afford. So I, you know, and if it wasn't for disability advocacy, like, teaching me different words and being like, oh, okay, if I just do these things, then like I can avoid this anxiety point. Like, and if I if I prepare myself for I can handle this tough thing, but I have to prepare myself for it, and I have to know when I'm reaching my limit and pull back, and how to care for myself in those moments, and not just, hurdle myself through it.
Exactly. Yep. Totally.
Yeah, that's interesting that you guys have had that shift in the perspective of Victoria, because I've been here for 6 years, but only really in this community for about 4. And the whole time it's felt like
that for you.
The coziest, just I
cool.
don't know,
That's
most aware group of young people I've ever met.
I noticed it a lot
Yeah.
when I started jamming with Ranger and the people from Vernon and stuff like that, and just meeting younger folks and really noticing it in younger generations, because you're closer to my age than a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
But there was that mentality to eye roll at anything sensitive when we were growing up. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's the way they say cringe now.
Totally.
We cringed at everything in the 90s and 2000s. It was cool to cringe at things. As especially if you had a sibling that listened to Our Lady Peace and stuff.
Oh,
they
yeah.
thought everything else was uncool.
Yes.
My brother will listen to this and laugh, because he was definitely one of those kids that was I know what is cool, and then he also now listens to Taylor
They
Swift
held
just
the
as much.
standard.
So, but you know what I mean. It was, but that was the era we grew up in, where it was it was cool to not like things.
Definitely,
it was cool to not show emotion, and it was. And
you avoided life.
It was very much mask or die, and
which is a very British colonial way of existing, actually. And I don't tie it entirely to the Brits, but I come from a very dry, sarcastic family, and sometimes I tie that back to just our very North American way of shoveling everything down and avoiding it, for the sake of the fact that we are all in this pressured container to thrive individually and succeed, and the feelings get in the way of the success. But the strongest people are the people I know who have learned how to sit with both, and then both support each other, right? The feelings support the work, and the work can support the feelings when they're an abundant thing rather than a scarcity of both draining each other. The two parts of the brain, one could say.
Great. That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. And I think for me, I wouldn't be joking if I said 4 years ago or whatever, prior to maybe going up north or actually becoming a teacher in the classroom, I would probably have rolled my eyes to certain phrases I find myself using all the time now. And I think part of that is definitely from people taking me through it, be it people within the Dome community, or my friend Madison, and working at this school for lots of neurodivergent kids, and all the language that gets used there has been really instructive. But it's also kind of I don't it's
language is so important.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I have historically felt shameful about things like grief and things things
our societies are really busted on how we deal with it. It's very busted. We're supposed to turn every adversity and every grief and every sad feeling into some triumph. Otherwise it's unpleasant. Otherwise it's shameful to sit in it too much. And in sitting with grief, we learn a lot about ourselves and how to grieve and stuff. I found the most in all the grief I've gone through, the most helpful book I ever read was It's Okay, You're Not Okay. And it's all about how our society deals with grief in such a backwards way, compared to how we used to gather and grieve deeply and loudly and whatever, and through song and whatever.
Again, you saying that you felt broken because you just didn't know how to navigate yourself. That's what our society feels like. It makes you feel like you're broken for dealing with these emotions like grief and stuff, because we just don't have the tools to know how to deal with them. Our society isn't really built with those.
And it's we don't. It's not always just you go through the 5 stages and that's, you know what I mean. It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
No, it's crazy how how events and challenges can send you back to do unfinished work at an earlier life phase. For example, this what I've kind of recognized recently is when I was in high school, because of being embedded in this drama program, I was really working hard at the same questions I'm kind of dealing with right now in my life, and weirdly going through the grief of my recent injury and leaving the North and other things that have happened. It's allowed me to kind of go back and continue that stuff. It's I took this hiatus from feeling things, and I got really in my head from roughly 20 to 30.
That's a long time to be in there.
Yeah. I convinced myself that I was a really cerebral person because I like to read and I like to talk and I'm a teacher and
that's very
et cetera.
supported and sought after. In our
Totally,
world.
and it became this thing. And it was
Feeling
the
is
funny
more
thing is like
shameful than
this.
thinking.
Yeah, this insight that I'm actually like heart driven person is. It's very, very new.
I know. The voice you did was like took me right back to the 90s. Oh, heart driven. Like you're literally mocking yourself. I love
there's
it.
still that
I love
inside
it,
me.
but that's the
like,
thing.
But I
It's
love
it's
it.
so
insight,
real.
This insight
It's
is
so
so
real.
recent that
It's
it's
so real.
literally so.
You're
I
still going through the discomfort
I
of feeling it.
recently
That's
started
the thing.
seeing a counselor named Barbara. Shout out to Barbara, who's amazing.
love
Barbara
the
is a
shout-outs.
beast. So recently she asked me this question, which was, what do you want to attract? And I won't tell you because gotta have some mystery. But
Keep that razzle dazzle.
but the most interesting thing about that actually wasn't necessarily what we discussed, but it was that I was like, she's like, think of it like a triangle. Like I want you to think about what do you want to attract in terms of thought? What do you want to attract in terms of action in the physical realm, and what do you want to attract in terms of feelings?
Thought, action, feeling.
Thought, action, feeling triangle. Might have heard of it before. I never heard of it, and I was like, oh, well, it'll be easy to do the thought one. And she's like, why is that? And I'm like, oh, well, like I'm a very like brain cerebral person, and she's like, I don't think you are. And I'm like, oh yeah. Go on. And she's
Challenge
like,
me.
and then she gave me all these like, because we've only had a couple hours of work together, but she gave me these very specific examples where she's like, actually, like you weren't able to even, you said you couldn't make the EP until you had like a sufficient amount of like emotion to describe, that the EP was your emotional release when you're in the north.
Cool.
You couldn't have written music without that. So is that what a cerebral musician would do? And I'm like, no, I guess not. And she's like, so she gave me all these examples and like
Proof, which
Yeah.
which a thinker needs. They need proof. You need proof.
Yes,
Yes.
the thinker needs proof.
You need
Exactly.
sure.
So the thinker was like, oh, damn, Barbara, that was slick.
Damn,
That was a
Barbara.
slick-
Can't argue. You gave me an argument I can't argue, so therefore
Damn,
I
Barbara,
have
you
to consider
earning
its
that
validity.
paycheck.
Yes, exactly.
Damn it, you have got me in my thinker brain because now I have to consider the validity of the point that you've just made on this, and it's so
She's
true.
good.
And I always
she's
saw
good.
you as a heart forward person, funny enough. 'cause
Totally.
People who I feel like have whether they're hiding it or not, like have a good deep emotional heart.
Yeah.
I feel safe around them early, even if I don't know them very well. I feel a weird sense of like intuitive safety or comfort.
Oh,
And then
thank
as
you.
I get to know them, I'm like, oh, it's because I see they got the feel in there,
It's totally reciprocal. I
Yeah.
felt the same
Aw.
when I met you. And
Yeah.
so and with you too, actually.
Aw,
one of those things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that, and that's like a really cool thing to discover because like, without going into too much detail, I'm going into a very, very difficult period of time with the surgery and the recovery
Your
and
heart, big time.
definitely.
Strength of the heart.
But it's been incredible, like the response that I've gotten from people and the kindness they've shown me and the like. My friend Esri recently the day that I got the news that I had to have this surgery and I would maybe potentially lose like speech as a result of it. I was feeling really messed up, and they took me for a walk on the Songhees Walkway, and they were talking about. I feel like this is a nug that needs to be shared, even though we're not talking tons about music. But that's okay. But
We
this
want
is a
all
nug
the
that people
nugs.
need to hear. I think
Nugs, yeah.
we were talking about like best case scenarios, worst case scenarios. We were talking about my worries and my fears and my hopes.
Yeah.
And then she's like, hope and fear are kind of like very similar if you think about
totally.
it. They're
Big
about
time.
projecting into a future that's uncertain and having a vision of how you want things to be or not be, but it's at least like it's imaginary. And she's like,
Yeah.
so really like what might be helpful for you is not to think about hope, but to think about trust.
Yeah, I think the tipping point for hope and fear with me is anxiety. If your anxiety is high, then you tip towards fear. If your anxiety is in a controlled, grounded state, then you can tip towards hope.
Interesting. Okay. So literally they're
Yeah,
two sides of
yeah.
a seesaw.
To me, I
and
feel
based
like,
on
yeah.
your level
That's
of
the
anxiety.
visual I have when I think about it as a seesaw.
Whoa,
Yeah,
that is so interesting.
yeah.
And so to get off the seesaw,
Mm.
if you will, she shared with me this idea that trust is what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
The things that are you're like I know no matter what goes down, the best or the worst, these are the things that I expect are going to be there for me.
Yeah, I would say hold on
We
to that because
need-
as someone who's gone through a
yeah.
lot of anxiety and like struggled a lot with like fear of things going wrong or for the future or whatever, just uncertainty and just struggling as a human with untreated anxiety for a lot of years, like that is spot on. Like as far as my experience goes, it's just like. Yeah, it's focusing on the things that you can trust because for me, like the thing, like when I used to get really bad panic attacks, and when I would get those, like the things that I know are real and true and can trust that they are real and true would be the way to ground my brain from the spiral. And then and the people that I can trust to see me in any state that I know that they are there's no nothing like they got me, you know, like that was always a thing I could come back to and be like, oh, I am this because I can. And even when you're like someone who struggles with your self-image or you doubt like good things about you, it's like, I know this person is, I can trust that what they're saying is true because they're so honest that if they had something bad, like Danny Jackson is one of my beacons of trust, because if she has some shit to call me out on, she will fucking tell me what's up. Like she will tell me the truth even if I don't want to hear it, and that is like rock solid to trust in my brain. So it's like it's one of those things like that. Yeah, it will get you through a lot.
Yeah, if you're somebody who has like these kinds of doubts in your mind, which I will as well, it's like you almost need like an external source to like keep you honest, so you don't like drift into misery or like whatever, or into like mania. Like you need to have, do you know, like you know the term I learned this year, you guys know like touchstone, like the idea of touchstone. Do you know that was actually like an object that you would use to test the purity of gold? It was like a certain type of rock called a schist.
Yeah,
and
they
push
would
gold
test
against
to
it, and it would
if
reliably tell you if it was real or fake gold.
Yeah.
So like people like Danny are like
miners, the gold miners.
Yeah, they're like a
touchstone.
They're like
She was
a
definitely a
touchstone.
touchstone.
That's
for
so
me.
cool.
Yeah, I definitely was like a touchstone for my dad when he would have manic episodes. Like I would be the like calming person in the family, even as a kid, which is a weird job.
It's a lot of weight, yeah. But what this brings to my mind was something my dad taught me when I was going through like a really shitty work experience. I was pretty certain that I would get fired, which I did. But I quit the same day that I got fired, so it doesn't really count. Anyways, it cancels out. But I was like living in this like fear every time I'd get anything wrong, that my job was already done, it was over, I was fired. Like every mistake I had felt like 100%. And then and he called me out and he was like, you are already fired in your mind.
Yep.
And
You've
every
already left the
time
job.
you are putting your mind in worst case scenario, you're also putting your nervous system through worst case scenario.
You're living it.
Your brain will manifest the reaction, the response, even if it's not actually happening to you. So on top of
as far as the brain
the whole
that's very
fear
real.
thing, if you're like putting your mind and your body through the fear symptoms all the time, it's just like extra weight and you're not even there yet. It's like but then again, on the flip side of that, if you have the power and like the control and the toolkit to focus on the hope stuff, focus on the positive stuff, and then like play that out in your mind on repeat rather than the opposite, the nervous system is there and your body knows how to take care of you better when you're in a more
that's
like
why like one of the things when they're panicking is like you say the five senses, right? You say point out 5 things you can see, 4 you can hear, 3 you can smell, 2 you can touch, whatever, and you go through that, and it's like it's just reminding you what is real, because your brain is feeding you all this not real stuff, and that's why this phrase is like I'm not my thoughts are so common in those kind of avenues when you're dealing with anxiety and anxious thinking, is like that reminder that like the reality that you are role playing in your brain is not necessarily a reality, and you can step out of it at any point in time, and you can also role play the best case scenario, like, you know, so sometimes I try to remind myself, I'm like, okay, I just role played the worst case scenario, so I need to balance it out with the best case scenario, because
I am a big booty sexy queen millionaire,
you know, like can't live in the worst case scenario.
I got double D's on these and all the men love me.
I just pictured you as like a cult leader. It's so funny.
I got these bitches for days, bitches and hoes.
But no, that's really good advice. That's really good point.
You're going into this with hope and trust is good.
I got the best. Like, honestly, shout out to all the peeps.
But you are what you eat too. That means
maybe
that you're showing
like,
up that way.
I don't know.
So you're eating the right peeps? Is that what you're saying?
I'm eating the right peeps.
It's also just because I wouldn't be me if I didn't say it too. This is obviously going to be such a crazy hard thing, and it's gonna be okay if it's totally valid and okay if there are days and times when it's just a lot and it's like, and you're just like, damn, this sucks. Like, don't live in that thought, you know, don't replay it all over and over and over again, but also don't try to hide from it, because it's a reality that you're going through, you know.
Totally. I'm not gonna try to delude myself. And the way that like, I feel like the advice that I got from Barbara that's really working for me, she's like, just like love your body right now.
Yeah.
She's like, just get gratitude for it.
Everything
just like pump it up. like notice all the nuances, all the things that work right in it. Because I think like, you know, mid-30s, everybody gets something going wrong. Yeah. And I'm not gonna like discount this incredible relationship I've had with this vessel. Yeah. Like it's served me as a musician. It's served me as in athletics. It's taken me to the
I was just gonna ask
mountains.
If you played team sports.
Yeah, it's taken me.
You just gotta give yourself the pre-game coach talk.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I like, you know, like like you can't throw it all away because I have like a couple wayward vessels that are now in my brain.
Some wayward
like
vessels.
Everything else is going so great. So I'm just trying to like just like trying to experience that as best I can. Which frankly, like it's something that's a little harder for me in a way. Like I don't know, like I talked about being embarrassed about like, you know, like the eye rolly thing, and like literally the word body has that kind of effect in me for some reason.
We're like thinking about like caring for your body. You're like, oh, that's
and
so
like
gross.
being in your body.
God, be present in my body. How fucking
exactly. Really like that being in your body phase. I'm like, everybody's in your body.
It's true.
You've been in your head for a decade.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it's also to the way you come up. They come up in an era where that's just the fucking they're so touchy feely.
We have our like habitual everyday body like activities.
Yeah.
But it's totally different than actually checking in, aligning, like breathing is so simple. But that actually makes such a difference.
The meditative body scan was one of the like greatest tools for me that I learned in the mindfulness workshop I did once. Was like just the body scan, like going through the body scan meditation stuff, and you're like, oh, okay, this is like
dude.
Totally check in with my body and what it needs. Yeah, but you're doing the thing, even though it's making you feel like eye rolly at yourself. You're taking the time to think about what your body needs and care for it, and that's huge.
Yeah, and like the there's a person named Madison who's really important to me, and I've known them for the last 2 years because we teach at the same school. And there was like an early interaction that we had once where I asked them how they were feeling, and they like closed their eyes and they like went like, and they like they kind of explored, and then they gave me like kind of they gave me the answer. I actually don't even remember the answer. I was more just like transfixed by that like pause, actually check in.
You didn't just give me the surface level answer.
Precisely, and I was like, and I. Because I interact with Madison a fair bit, like I'll notice these times when they close their eyes and I'm like, oh, then there's something happening in them and for them right now. And it like has this like halo of sacredness around it. And I'm like, what are they perceiving right now in this situation that I'm not? And my instinct is often that they're thinking about their kids because they adore their kids. So I'm like, how are their kids being entered into this for them? So it's just cool. So I like, you can say be in your body, blah, 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 as much as you want, but it's actually witnessing people use it and then seeing like how tremendous they're like.
What's the proof?
I was just going to say the thinker needed proof.
Their integrity. It's the integrity of it. And you're just like, God damn.
Yeah.
You have so much integrity.
Oh,
and
it's so
it's because they're getting in there.
Yeah. And like one can say that about any kind of human experience of like the positive or the negative or the spiritual and the non-spiritual. It's like whatever someone fully believes, that is their existence. That is their reality to them. Therefore, it's real enough for me to buy into it and to be like, I support this for you. But then also that stuff just like works. Like just checking
it does.
in,
and like,
taking it slow. Just anytime I'm slower than my normal operating speed, I am so much more chill. I highly suggest ashwagandha. It is my favorite herb, and it just regulates your cortisol levels. And it has the only time in my whole adult life I've ever been able to achieve no thoughts.
Wow, that's
without
huge.
being like intoxicated or something.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's really awesome.
I feel like interested in taking what we were just discussing, this notion of like when you're in your body, experience integrity, and relating that to music, which is like our shared domain. Like, how does that feel? Like, how do you know when that's happening for you?
Oh, for me, when I'm improvising lyrics, like it's a mix of two, weirdly, because like a lot of the time I'm very conscious of, you as singers especially, we're conscious of like if we're doing what sounds right, if we're hitting what we want to hit, if we're gonna have the breath for the next thing or whatever. Yes. And in improvisation, I feel like it's this moment where like I'm physically in my body, but also somehow not there at all. Like my brain, like my body is present, and I'm so connected to my body that my brain is shut off, and there's just like a channel opened up to the creative. Yes. Wow. And that's just coming.
So there's no monitoring.
I'm just a there's no monitor. I'm a vessel for whatever comes
that's
into
so
my
cool.
comes out my mouth, and that's that. And that's why I record shit, because I never remember it after it happens.
Yes, yeah, you've mentioned this before, Jams. You're like, yeah, I don't remember a thing I just said.
Yeah, I asked Ranger to send me something from that last one because I was like, I liked it, but I don't know what I did. And he's like, that's so funny every time. Like,
to me, it feels like a
about you?
game. I feel like I go full child brain.
Yeah, you got playful.
I love
you
that.
play music.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like my life mission is to play,
Yeah.
and I'm very grateful. It's a great life mission to have. But I want to help other people get into that playful space because it's done so much for me to be able to hang on to like my inner child. And she just gets to blossom in that space, and she doesn't judge herself, and she's just like full on like, let's see what can happen over here. Oh my God, it's a what?
and I said before, that's
and
what
I'm
drew
like
me to Tasha too, because I had the
I'm
same
just like,
eye roll you have about myself being playful, like you know. So it's like one of those interesting things.
And
so
once
like with Madison, you're seeing something
Exactly.
a practice that they embody that you're like, I want to be that
witnessing moment that you had, but with Tasha and her playfulness.
But like finding other people who get that just validated me so much, and I didn't get that until I moved to Victoria, where people like take play very
bunch
seriously.
of playful weirdos in this town. It's
Totally.
great.
Yeah, but like take play seriously with their super like technique based talent too. And then it's like magic. It's like, whoa, it's like you took this so seriously that you trained it, and now our play is like crazy cool. Like our play is like a different level of play. And I want other people to just like nibble on that, because it can be so medicinal for people to go into a space and just be like, let's break all the rules and like fucking see what happens.
Yes.
It's so cool.
Yeah, but I totally hear you when you say like play, but then it's enhanced by the expertise.
Yes.
Like for example, Shane, like I was able to jam with him so naturally from the get-go because he's simultaneously so fluent and also so open.
That's he's such a same way I was.
He's such an eyes up player.
Yeah.
Like, and like I'm so comfortable. I'm so comfortable looking in his eyes. Like I can be like locked into a piano groove and looking in his eyes and not even have a moment of like
a weirdness,
hesitation.
Ooh, okay.
And I think that's the key with most of
especially because I
would
would play with Tyler and Tyler.
Oh, Tyler,
he's so talented, so amazing, and so present.
Shout out Tyler!
But his eyes, his brain, he goes into another planet sometime. And he's like there, right? Whereas then I'd be playing with Shane, and Shane would like look me right in the eye and dance with me on stage.
Yeah.
And so I'd have the best of this both worlds. Like, you know, I'd have Tyler over here doing his thing, who's floating off in space, making cosmic shit happen. And then I got Shane here dancing with me and like, you know, vibing with me. And yeah, it's such a huge
huge
thing.
I love it. So I definitely tend to value like folks who bring that out in me. Another one of those is my friend Tess, who I met during the classical program and like started writing songs with, and she's the one who really invited me into starting to sing because she is an amazing singer. Shout out to Tess Meckling, Lizel on Spotify, Leizel. Check her stuff out.
You're so good at this.
And also
the shout outs are so good.
Yeah, well, I just got so many people.
Give
I
you a
love.
heads up because I just realized it. We got distracted, but the time is 6:50.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's we'll
It happened.
50.
We'll work our way. We'll work our way into a rap. No,
yeah,
no
I just felt like I had to give you a heads up.
that's
like,
really that's really good.
Soon.
But I guess I was gonna say like those like the people who like strip you of like the self-consciousness, because I've been in jams before where it feels so I'm like, and I like this, I won't roll my eyes at all, where you're just so in your head. You're like, technically we're all playing the same chords, but this is
feel like a jam.
I actually feel like not ill, but like a little sick.
No, I get it.
Like,
I get it.
It's so not jiving.
Yeah.
Technically, this should be fine.
Yeah.
And it's like there's this little low key dread that you're experiencing. You're like,
Yeah.
is the next one going to be like this?
That's why
How is this even going to end?
I just can't sing until the
How
vibe
is this
is
song
right.
even going to end?
I think you're in the fear.
It's definitely fear. It's fear of
Yeah.
like, oh man, I organized this jam with these people. I thought it was going to be good, and it's not. Or
This
fear
is
that
weird.
like they're
Yeah.
thinking I suck, or fear that like, whatever it might be.
So many things.
And yeah, like I'm not a singer, and although I do sing like every so often at a jam, I'll sing a song just to like, whatever, get out of the comfort zone. But for me, like what you're describing about it feeling like a channel, it's the same experience but through the keyboard.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And like I just love it. Like you can close your eyes or lock in, and for me, I think the signal that I'm like in it is I like smile.
Yeah. I get
smile.
smiling.
I'm just like
I start to dance too. I smile and I move.
I smile.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling so damn good.
Yeah.
I'm smiling because like you
Or
know, I gotta
spontaneous laughter. I'll spontaneously
Again, it's
giggle.
play. You're just letting it happen.
Yeah.
You're not, restricting it to
Yeah,
anything.
exactly.
Just letting
Yeah,
it be.
not limiting yourself.
Yeah, we need to maybe do a jam soon.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm having one on Sunday.
Yeah. So this Sunday.
This coming
And
Sunday.
then you also have something on the 14th, right?
15th.
No, it's not a jam on the 15th. It's
It's
like
a
a
fundraiser.
benefit
Yeah.
show.
I want to come to that too.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah,
want you to
I'm not
plug
gonna
it
perform at that
public.
though,
No.
because I'm probably gonna
You're
be
just
way
gonna
too
hang out.
way too emotional
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't know what I'm gonna be, but
We're gonna
like,
hang out and just hug people
Where
and
is
stuff.
it?
Whatever you need to do.
I don't know. I literally kind of
Still
like
in the planning phase.
I kind of
Okay.
stepped like out of being involved in organizing it because I'm kind of being really like not I guess I'm being kind of selfish right now, to be
You're
honest.
allowed.
I'm
No,
kind of
you're
just
leaning on your community.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. You know what I mean? You're seeking support. You're accepting it.
Mhm.
And that's okay. You're allowed to be that level of selfish. You know what I mean? It's selfish always has such a negative connotation, but I think there's a positive
Oh,
side
no,
to
no,
it too.
Mhm.
Like when you're a giver and a people pleaser, or when you're not used to doing that.
Giving yourself
It's
a very
you're
cushy
allowing
diamond
yourself to lean on your community. Like you've got
Yeah.
people who are willing to plan it and to field the questions and do the things.
Mhm.
Yeah, let them
Yeah.
do it. They
Yeah.
want to love you in that way. So you're
Yeah.
also giving them the gift. I was told this because I'm also not good at accepting stuff sometimes and support when I'm struggling, and I don't want to feel like a burden. And it's like allow your friends the gift of showing up for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And taking that burden, like some of the burden off your plate because they want to, and it gives them something too. They feel good.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh yeah, like they become the like they're the gift. Like
Yeah.
they're like it's what they're doing. Its value comes from the fact that that you're accepting it and that
Yeah.
it's being spread
Yeah.
through the community. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's beautiful,
So
so-
thank you for being our gift today and
Oh, yeah.
finally making this chat work. And I feel like it
Oh, yeah,
happened
we're so
exactly when it
excited.
needed
Yeah.
to.
Totally.
It lined
Yeah.
up how it needed to.
Yeah.
I think, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and like Katie, you suggested before this, like, because I don't know, I should give a little smidgen of context to people. Like, I'm going through the surgery soon, and one of the possible side effects is that I might lose my speech. So I feel like it'll be super, super powerful if things like that go down, that I can go back and listen to this.
Yeah,
Like,
and
where
then
was
you've
I a
got
week or
stuff.
two before?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, what was like to remind myself
Yeah.
if I'm in like, you know, if I'm
Yeah,
really
and if you're having a
grieved.
bad day, you can listen back and be like, "Oh yeah, I gotta."
Yeah,
get
these
the
are
trust.
the actual
Gotta get the
ideas.
trust.
I gotta
Here's my
believe
things.
myself.
I gotta listen to my own words. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So this will be a time
gift.
capsule for me.
Yeah,
It's a
I
gift
like.
to
I'm
future
glad.
you.
Yeah.
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 Also give to
Happy to
future us.
facilitate it.
'Cause
Yeah,
talking
I
to
always
you is
take.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I
Thank
love
you.
your
I always
stories.
take a lot of lessons away from everyone that I have talks like this with, whether it's on a podcast or not. But I really always enjoy it, especially through the podcast realm, because then I'm more thinking of like questions that I want to ask on a deeper level than just a conversation. And so, but I always take something away, but especially this time, I feel like there's a lot of reminders in your experience that I needed for my own
Thanks.
brain.
I feel like you're like 75% of the way through your wizardom, and you're just
Yeah,
about
there's
to
definite
enter
wizard
the,
vibes
like
coming.
last
Today is first
25%
trip round the sun.
of
Clearly.
your wizard like achievement unlocked.
That's a very
And
thoughtful
it's-
thing to say. I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, because
Have you ever
these
done a past
moments
life
ask-
regression? I feel like that'd be an
the-
interesting one for you.
They
I
ask a
wonder
lot
who
of
you were
us,
before
and
this.
it's because you're like collecting all the jewels that you're gonna put into the machine that's going to give you this big, epic, super cool hat and a wand, and you're gonna be like this bad bitch, and Ilnyckyj is gonna be like, like trotting around casting
He now
spells.
needs like a wizard costume
You
with a
guys are
hat that
pumping
just
me
says
up.
"It's the Moxie." He
I do love
needs a wizard
fantasy.
hat
Do
that
you guys
says
know what a
"It's the
fantasy box
Moxie" on it.
It's Demoxy.
It's the Moxie on his
Yeah, like
hat.
gemmed. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks guys. It's been really a delight to talk to you.
Yeah, and you have, let's plug your Fireweed album, right?
Oh yeah. If
Your
you want to
EP.
listen,
Fireweed EP.
if you want to listen to the only thing I ever did all by myself, it's on Spotify. Ilnyckyj, ILL space SASH, and the EP is called Fireweed. It's 19 and a half minutes, and it's about
It's lovely.
it's
No
about
regrets.
lots of things. I hope you like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll feature it on our Have You Heard for this episode.
It's about lots of things,
Give a
and
sample.
highly recommend if you're in that mood where you're like back when you were young and you get in that mood where you just need to put on an album and stare at the ceiling and feel things. It's a good one for that.
Hell
Highly
yeah.
recommend.
Hell yeah. I love how many people experience it differently.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's an audio diary, but some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, I love it for gardening. And some are like, oh, it's a perfect drive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It gets new life
it's
in
the
different years.
interpretation, Right?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the gift of music.
That's
So,
the gift.
groovy, baby.
All right.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having
guys.
me.
Thanks for coming.
Really appreciate that.
Very happy to have you.
We want to thank everyone who made Squish happen. Specifically, we would love to thank Elena Alstrom and Renata Baldwin for the wonderful background music for our intro and outro, as well as all of our vocal squishers who offered your cute little voices.
so adorable. We love you so much.
I want to thank Katie for editing together our intro and outro soundtrack.
And Tash for doing the video editing and a bunch of great graphic design work.
That's right. We're thanking ourselves because we fucking did this bitch. Yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. And we hope to catch you in the next episode.
Heck yeah. Thanks to everyone for being part of it.
Love you.
Love you.